Hello, everyone, and welcome to this LexisNexis webinar on staying in the know and keeping up with the law. We are thrilled to have so many of you with us this afternoon for this cross-border panel discussion featuring speakers in regional roles and attendees from Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, and more. A couple of quick housekeeping notes before we start. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and the recording will be made available on our corporate websites. Secondly, there will be time allocated at the end of the panel for audience questions, so please feel free to submit any questions you may have through the Q&A box, which you should see at the bottom of your screen. Before we dive into what I'm sure will be a vibrant panel discussion, I'd like to invite my colleague Samantha to introduce you all to a brand new legal drafting solution available now in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Malaysia, Lexis Clause Intelligence. Over to you, Samantha.
Thank you so much, Rashini. So let me just share my screen. It'll probably take a second. So if everyone can see my screen right now, what we have on the screen is what we call Lexis Clause Intelligence. So in a nutshell, what Lexis Clause Intelligence is, it's a drafting tool which is to perfect your drafting. And in order to perfect your drafting, it actually leverages AI technology. So what you can do is drag and drop any of the completed or drafted templates or any of the contracts or agreements that you have, and you can just drag and drop onto this platform right here. So if you are someone who works on dispute resolution, commercial, or any corporate agreements, this is a platform that you can utilize and integrate into your everyday drafting routine and to perfect your documents even further. So without further ado, let me just show you how this platform works. So what we have on screen, you can see is quite a simplistic view, and it's quite a simplistic interface. So what you actually have to do, as I mentioned previously, you can just enter any of the documents or agreements that you have and simply click on upload. And once you've uploaded, it'll probably take a few seconds. And please do be reminded that we do support what we call a document X platform format. So when you're uploading any of the documents, do make sure they're in the document X format. And once you come onto the results page or this page that we have right here, on the left-hand side, you'll probably realize that we have some of the navigation tools. So you can actually navigate through to see which areas the clauses have actually been recommended to you. And you can actually see that if you hover on top or if you click on any of them, it will take you to the right-hand side area right here where we have all the recommended clauses. So when you're looking at each of these clauses, we'll also have what we call some of the positioning. So for example, for some of the recommended clauses, you'll probably see that the clauses will probably be pro a certain side, or there might be in favor of a certain side when you're drafting these documents. So these are also some notes that you can look at. And apart from that, you can actually also see what we call drafting notes on Summit when you hover above all of these buttons that we have right here. And the drafting notes are essentially what our authors or the people that we work with, which are usually solicitors or barristers in the field, or certainly renowned lawyers in the field. And they've actually added these drafting notes to make it easier for you to refer to all of these notes that we have right here. And when you decide whether you want to incorporate any of these clauses into the document that you're currently drafting, it works as almost like a companion to tell you which areas you might want to pay more attention to, or you might want to look into further, or have some more detailed reading into. Or it might also mention some of the laws that you might want to specifically look at as well. And you'll also realize that on top of the bar, you'll realize that apart from Hong Kong, we also have UK, Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, and New Zealand jurisdictions on top. So these are actually some of the other Commonwealth jurisdictions that are covered on this platform as well. And even if a lot of the times you might not be able to view the exact, even if sometimes if you don't view the exact clause that you're looking for, we actually have a search function on top. So we have a clause library where you can enter any of the keywords that you have to further search for any specific clauses that you're looking for. So Another thing you can actually do on this platform is you can download any of the relevant clauses that you find on this platform, and then you can download it, and it downloads as a Word document as well. So you can just take this Word document that you have on hand and then move on to the next step to perfect your drafting even further. And last but not least, these documents are actually linked to another platform, another drafting platform of ours, which is called Lexis Advanced Practical Guidance. So if you click on any of these links that we have right here, you'll be able to view any full documents which are seamlessly integrated onto the Lexis Advanced Practical Guidance. So if any of you are interested in Lexis Clause Intelligence, please do feel free to reach out to our team. And thank you everyone for joining this demo that we have today. So back to you, Rashini.
Thank you very much, Samantha, for that quick showcase. And thank you to those of you who have just joined us. Welcome to this LexisNexis webinar on staying in the know and keeping up with the law. Without further ado, I would like to introduce the moderator of today's panel discussion, Joyce Segadanandam. Do also feel free to participate in the conversation by asking any questions you may have through the Q&A box, and the panelists will endeavor to answer as many of these as possible at the end of the panel. Over to you, Joyce.
Thanks, Roshni. Thank you all for joining us after your lunch, or perhaps for some of you midway through lunch. As legal practitioners, and especially corporate counsels, we are always busy managing our business as usual. And unless we very conscientiously take time to keep abreast with new laws, trending regulations and themes, we can get stuck in our rabbit holes and we find ourselves behind legal trends, new or updated laws or regulations. As Roshni said, I am the Deputy Global Compliance Counsel here at LexisNexis. And I must say, I am one of the fortunate counsels to have supporting me an institution which not only drives innovation and is in the business of keeping the legal fraternity in the know now. LexisNexis embraces and drives a culture of compliance and good ethics. Those of you who are our customers, you know this, as you already get alerts from us on our latest case laws and regulations, laws and regulations. And today, as part of our learning initiative, we are here with our panel to get a high-level overview on how they manage keeping up with the know now. I have with me our Malaysian panelist, Shalini Sangaran, who's Head of Compliance and Principal Legal Advisor at Astro. Shalini started her legal career with Screen and was made partner in 2019, where her key practice areas were arbitration, commercial and civil disputes, investigations, and advisory work for anti-bribery, corruption, anti-money laundering. She was also involved in internal investigations, fraud, and asset recovery. Very recently, in 2022, Shalini joined the Astro Group as the Head of Compliance and Principal Legal Advisor, handling all compliance matters for the group, as well as litigation and anti-piracy matters. Very impressive and interesting work, Shalini. Not to be outdone, we have our Singapore panelist and my former colleague, Tanya Pomiska. Tanya is the APAC Lead Corporate and Compliance Counsel at Autodesk. Tanya has worked across 6 Fortune 500s, ranging from big FMCGs like P&G to resource companies such as BP. I know this, her skills include leadership, expertise in compliance design, risk mitigation strategies, building and engaging in organizational training. I know how innovative Tanya is. I took on her role in 2020, and Tanya's goal is to be at the forefront of legal tech and to be an enabler. Thank you both for joining us, and thank you for taking time off from your busy schedules.
Thanks, Joyce.
Right. Thanks. I am going to direct my first question to you, Shalini. Astro would be a heavily regulated industry, but perhaps you can give us a high-level insight on the types of regulations and laws you have to keep yourself up to date with, and how do you do it? You know, if you could give us some insight on some of your best practices as well.
Thank you, Joy. Sorry, I think I got disconnected a bit earlier. Thank you for the lovely introduction. And yes, you're absolutely right. So Astro is a public listed entity, and due to the nature of our business, we are obviously highly regulated because we have a license with the MCMC, which is the Communications and Multimedia Organization in Malaysia. To start off with, I must say that I'm very privileged because within Astro, we have a whole army of people. We have a regulatory team, we have a corporate assurance team, we have our legal and compliance as well, looking into all sorts of regulations. And we have our data protection team as well, because we obviously deal with a lot of data, consumer data, and there are millions of data that is being exchanged on a daily basis. So for me personally, what I do is that I actually have alerts that I have actually done even in the past in my practice that I've set on my own. So quite apart from the alerts that we have subscribed, in the nature of, for example, from Lexis, we even have a alert subscribed with Lexis. And quite apart from that, I have my own alerts because of the nature of the business that we deal with. So I do for compliance, for regulatory, for corruption, bribery, etc. So what I do is that I've actually put it on my Google alerts. So on a daily basis, I actually get news around the world which relates to my area of practice and what we do within our jurisdiction. So including piracy matters as well. So this is how I've sort of managed to, at a high level, keep abreast with the current, positions of the law. Besides, obviously, subscribing to, law firms, and other service providers who actually provide these services.
Wow. Yes, those alerts are really important for us, right? Yeah, I'm just wondering, could you tell us, would you be able to share with us any stories that you have, anything interesting, maybe anti-piracy?
I think, in the past, we've just recently gotten a judgment sometime late last year, one of the first judgments when it comes to anti-piracy issues. And one of it involved, in fact, the use of Android boxes. So whether, is it legal, is it not illegal, and is it the content itself? So what we've figured out is that based on the pressure that Astro in itself, the team exerted, this is prior to my time, in fact, exerted, and they've had roundtable discussions with the MCMC, the ministry involved in this, to sort of push them to regulate this area, because Android boxes in itself are not illegal. It is how you use it and how the content are provided. So then what the ministry then did was that they then decided they would regulate it, which means that only if you have the SIRIM sticker, and they've also passed a regulation to that effect, only if it's a regulated device with the relevant sticker, is it then legal to be sold. And then separately, if you sell it with paired sort of apps, which can actually download pirated content, like for example, Astro content, then it is illegal in any case. So even though you are selling a legal device, it will still be illegal because you'll still be caught under the copyright infringement section. So this is one of the things that I think the Astro team has done very well in pushing forward until the ministry themselves actually came up with it, and the judges that themselves also took cognizance of this and ruled in our favor. So we're still pursuing this, because then the the device manufacturers became creative, because then now they sell the devices, but they do not tell you how you can get the app. They tell you that you have to then, they'll send in the instructions separately, so through another sort of provider. So they'd say, I'll just send you the device, but they'll give you instructions to do something else on the side. So this is something that we are still trying to figure out how to curtail. So this is an ongoing sort of work that we do in order to combat these issues. Quite apart from your regular outlets that we send literally PIs to the stalls, the mama shops, to see whether they have a decoder. They're actually zooming in. I've seen pictures. They're zooming in to see whether there's actually an Astro decoder or anything in place, whether there is we have a system where if that screening we have captured, right, we can identify whether it's an Astro content or a pirated content, because our IT team has done something where in the screen itself, we can actually locate something that is not visible. So, these are the things that they have advanced as far as, technology is. I mean, sorry, I don't want to take up too much of time.
No, please, that's very
the,
interesting. Because it's very interesting, because all of us, we all have either Netflix or Astro, this is something that we consume, right? As consumers.
It's a very niche sort of area, but it's interesting for me as well, because as far as, piracy in the broadcast industry is concerned.
Thank you for that. Tanya, over to you. Can you tell us about Autodesk? What is Autodesk? Can you tell us about it, and what type of laws do you need to keep abreast with, and how do you manage that?
Sure. So Autodesk has been around for a while. It's a San Francisco headquartered technology company. We sell to engineers, architects, nowadays even to, creatives. So that's like our heavy focus. The product, to say in the briefest form, is software as a service for the construction sector mainly, and then also media sector. So let's just imagine if Joyce wants to build this beautiful house somewhere in Malaysia, and she just wants to know what's the most sustainable way to build it, where the risk lies on a pillar. Our software can help give you like regenerative design ideas, saying, hey, Joyce, your project manager needs to focus on the load of this pillar. It's not right, chop, chop. And it does this very quickly and helps you as a consumer. So yes, that's where I work. In terms of areas of law, given that it's a US headquartered company, pretty much like, LexisNexis, and also as Marriott, which was where I was just before coming to Autodesk. We look like, I work heavily on anti-bribery corruption laws. There are sanctions related as well that I think many of you can identify as being a pain point, especially with, the Russia-Ukraine tensions that happened.
Yes.
Also, China being put, like, many Chinese corporations being on the entity list. And there are many other laws, like, new ESG laws coming in, also privacy laws, and a whole conundrum of disclosures being required in this whole compliance space, ever expanding space, I call it that. So now to keep abreast of these, right? Like Shalini said, I do have some alerts. That's one. Then there are other things also, which I'm sure most of us in-house do, which is go to the regulator's website. Like, for the entity list, you have no choice, but you have to go there. So there is that. Then there are those law firm updates. In terms of due diligence on entities, we also use platforms that help with it. But the sad part is there are no insights given. We still have to go through this, report. So if LexisNexis decides to use ChatGPT and build insights on that, would be very excited to explore that. So there is all this, but what happened, Joyce and Shalini and everyone on this panel. This was at Marriott, okay? This was when I was at Marriott, the Russia-Ukraine sanctions came about, and it was so sudden. Like, with Marriott, we had to identify, are there some Russian oligarchs staying in our Maldives properties? Have they paid us money? Have they got Russian ruble-backed credit cards on file? Can we collect money from them? Can we sell Russian standard vodka anymore? Can we sell Russian Black Sea caviar anymore? So all these random things happen, okay? And we had to look at this and act very quickly. So that's when I realized that alerts, law firm newsletters, all that are great, but it's not still on your fingertips. We still had to engage 2 law firms, not 1, 2 law firms, and have these immediate reports to us. I'm going to pause there.
Oh, no, that's really interesting. You're talking about sanctions because, there's that LexisNexis runs a very robust compliance, program. And one of the things is we use this tool called LexisNexis Diligence. And that really, Nexus Diligence actually helps us run those sanction checks. And we have a platform at Bridger, which actually goes through our customer list. So we automate that process. And then of course, and you would have done, this, Tanya, because you did this before me. So, so all that's automated, whatever that's escalated comes up for us for review. So actually it's like it's filtered sanction checks as well. So I guess having an automation tool helps with our sanctions work and sanctions alert. And yes, going to the authorities and looking at that and having a team actually do that and send us alerts, and of course law firms as well, who also alert, send out these opinions and alerts. Those are really great. Yes, that's great. That's nice to know. So how did you deal with that, Tanya, in terms of which whether we are having oligarchs
Oh my gosh.
yeah, hotels, yeah.
Oh, that was quite something. So we had to call people on property, find out who's staying. There are privacy concerns as well
Yes.
on these matters, right? Like whose data we are keeping, how are we keeping it, who's
Yes.
accessing it, who's viewing it, is accessing it, all these controls. And Marriott had a data breach in the past, okay, not so long ago. So we had some extra controls put in place as well. So I had to just be very mindful of, we had a whole team working behind it, but
Yeah.
we did need help of law firms to support us then, because this was very, very like instant. It wasn't something that was like, something we could like take some time with. So yeah, it was 24/7 madness. That's how I would describe it.
Yeah. And, Shalini, if you can just share with us, on your compliance and regulatory work, how is the staying in the know, like what Tanya was talking about, the data privacy, that's an ever evolving theme as well. How does as to
Yeah,
manage
definitely.
the customer data and, best practices?
I think if we notice the newspaper report yesterday, it's that Malaysia in the last quarter faced 84 million cyber attacks per day, and in total it came up to, I think, 200 billion or something like that. And globally, the numbers are pretty much similar. So, and Astro, I mean, we have a very, very tight security, because it's not just the data, there's also our content. Our contents, which we are partnering with other third parties, like for example, HBO, Netflix, and certain shows are premiered, and it's the same day premiere. It's at the same time, so we have to manage in the sense that there have been attempts of people trying to get into the system to try and it's like those days they used to download from the torrent and all that, and these are people trying to attempt to get into Astro networks and servers to get the shows. I'm not sure why, but some people actually do it, and maybe to put it onto their platform as well for monetary reasons. I mean, we've tried to sort of figure out, is it coming from the dark web, is it other sources, or it is a huge and in that sense, I think I must say that our regulatory team is always in touch with the ministry. So they're constantly talking, and we've got the new communications minister as well. So they're constantly in conversation with the minister about these things. So even if there is a even if the sorry, am I breaking up?
No, now you're okay. You're
all right,
okay
so even in the instance where there were rumors, I think it came out on Twitter that there was a data breach, it was taken very seriously. It's something that we only found out from social media, but in actual case it didn't even occur. So so that's I want to add that the data privacy and security is very much it's the investment that they've put in. So there's a lot of investment that they've put in, and it is only expanding because of these cyber threats. And cybersecurity, we know now that it is the number one thing that's coming up these days in the region. As far as the other compliance and regulation regulatory framework. We are a public listed entity. We are governed by our other laws. We've got the MACC laws, the anti-corruption laws, our penal codes, we've got the Malaysian corporate governance as well. So what we do is what I've only been in my role for, I've joined midway through last year. So the first thing is I usually do is that to understand what is our goal for the year. So this being done right now, it's pretty timely because for the year you normally have a goal as far as compliance. What are you going to do? What are the plans? What do you want to achieve at the end of it? So being a public listed company, we've now also I would say we have the FTSE for ESG as well reporting. So we're also going to report for governance under ESG. So I would say you have to have a set of goals for the year. You must know your industry, the regulatory framework. For us, it's the regulations for communications, and quite apart from that, all other laws that apply to a public listed entity. And then, of course, a review of your policies and procedures. Me coming in halfway, these were already in place. So for me, it was more of a gap analysis that I needed to do to meet what's missing and what would be necessary to meet those gaps. And then a risk assessment, if absolutely necessary. I think it's useful for someone new coming on to conduct your own risk assessment. So you have to chat with the business partners, as in your own business units, your entities, to understand where they are, where are the risk areas. And then, the whole works of it, as in the tracking the violations, the trainings are absolutely important because we are a workforce of almost 4,000, 3,500 odd. And how do you train every single one, from your installers to your board of directors? So I separate the training. We have the e-learnings, and then we have targeted learnings for the board of directors, because obviously now that we have corporate liability, they need to know that they can be liable and they can actually go to jail if the corporation is liable, right? So that's at a high level, how I look into my role as far as the compliance and regulatory compliance is concerned.
Very interesting. I'm going to stop at that ESG. We'll talk about that later. But, I have this very interesting question. This is for all of us, where, Giselle has asked, we only work in a rabbit hole of our company, which could be big or small. And then she's worked in a small company. And how do you put yourselves out there to be seen and to be, to work in a global, I suppose, of, Fortune 500 company, I suppose. So I guess one of, and I'll, panelists, so who would like to take that question?
I'm happy to take that.
Yeah, if you could give some advice. This is like a side advice.
Sure. I would like to take that because, I've worked at many companies. Like, I think it's come up to 8 now from 6 choice, just during COVID. Okay, just during COVID, it's changed to 8. So what I say is, in this day and age, LinkedIn visibility is quite important.
Yeah.
And I know, like, a dear friend of mine, she moved to Singapore. She's new to Singapore. What she did, and it struck with me quite very much, is she randomly reached out to people on LinkedIn in allied professions, okay, or in the same profession. She had 100 coffees. 100 coffees is what she had. And then she got a role out of it where she wanted. So meet more people, cast your net far and wide, and be visible by, posting on LinkedIn, by being unafraid to be seen. People are very forgiving. So even if you post something out there, like, we as women a lot of times wonder, hey, what if someone, especially in the legal profession, which is very, based on grades, status driven, all that it used to be, it's changing a bit now. But in the legal profession, you worry when you put yourself out there, is someone going to have a different point of view and correct me in those comments? Don't worry. Let them comment. There are others who will support you. So just put yourself out there.
Great. Giselle, I hope that answers your question. And Tanya's absolutely right. I want to go back quickly to Shalini. You talked about how you managing stakeholders. And so Tanya, what about yourself at Autodesk? Who are your stakeholders and how do you keep them updated in the know? We need to keep, as the legal team, we have to also advise our stakeholders, right? How do you filter down on what's important?
Absolutely. So here is the challenge, right? So in some roles, what I've done is that I have actually read the regulatory updates myself or have had somebody on my team do it. And then we would compile like, AML one column, APAC one column, ESG one column, and by countries that are within my remit, what's the update on those? And then if there is something like, competition authorities are supposing somewhere very active, right? And there is a case, like there wasn't one too long ago in Singapore about, the competition authority looking at people's WhatsApp in a company. So that's something I highlighted to my stakeholders. Like, for example, I told them, hey, this happened here in Singapore, where the regulator looked at your WhatsApp. So if you're in WhatsApp groups with your old colleagues where you're not participating, it's same as being at a table with them. And you have not moved out of the table. You're still at the table. So even if you don't participate in the discussion, you are considered a party to it. So be careful about it. So the idea is to have filtered communication that sticks with them. There are too many stakeholders. I'm still trying to map them out. That is one of the challenges as well of being in a very matrix organization. We are 10,000 plus employees spread all over the globe, and different, groups overlap. So one of the things that our APAC, the head of APAC, like the VP, says is that, don't work in your silos. So I think that's very important for us in MNCs to connect the dots. And I think ESG is one of those areas which will lead up to that in a way, because many people need to get involved in that. You can't be like in a siloed sort of fashion working. So like Shalini, very similar, I think most people would do this in a compliance program. You do your risk assessment, you look at your policies universe and say, hey, these are the gaps in my policies. Or, hey, these are the old audit reports, these are the old investigations. And I notice people seem to keep not understanding certain things. Maybe they need awareness, maybe they need a face-to-face training. I've got an integration, like, an acquisition come over, have those employees been trained in 90 days? Does the acquisition also have same policies as we do? So that's the whole compliance program. And then this followed up with routine communication, to the leadership team. So I have a standing meeting with some of these commercial leaders, because compliance legal can't advise in the vacuum. We need that seat at the table. I feel very strongly about it that we need to have that seat at the table rather than being brought in later, in this like very weird fashion where no one wants us at the table. So yeah, that's what I'm sort of promoting for. Let me be that one more person at the table. That's how I'm trying to sort of work through this. Still very new in my organization, but this has been done before in the past organizations, and hoping to find similar traction here.
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, all, those of you who are in-house counsels, and, I think one of the challenges that we face, and I found this is, it's across the board. One of the things is exactly what Tanya's saying about having a seat on the table. Sometimes you have to really push your way into the table and really be bold about it. And, you have to have just like how everyone has a business case, you have to have your business case, I guess, because one of the things it's so important, at the end of the day, when something, goes bad, the councils are the ones who are the gatekeepers of the company, right? So you have to really push that agenda and put yourselves out there and make sure that your voice is heard, because your voice is a very important voice, and stakeholder management is so important. I guess a lot of collaboration as well. Thank you for that, Tanya. That's absolutely true. LexisNexis is always keeping a close eye on AI technology. And you guys, we spoke about ChatGPT. We are very excited about ChatGPT and its underlying large language model. A lot of thought, research, and planning is being invested into encapsulating this latest technology and its amazing capabilities here at LexisNexis. What are your thoughts on ChatGPT, and how do you think it'll affect counsels, the future of law? this is an evolving topic as well. This is the know now that we need to embrace, right? So, either of you, Shalini, if you want to start, and then.
Sure. Yeah. Interesting choice of topic. I think, I mean, I've not used it so much, but I've just went on to the platform to try and test it. I think it's a very useful tool, but it has to be used wisely because obviously, firstly, because AI is not regulated. And then there's where are these sources coming from? It can be manipulated into giving you the wrong answers. And of course, digging in, sort of personal data or sensitive information. Just to give you an example, so why I say it's an amazing tool is because I went on it to just sort of test it out. I said, oh, show me how to draft a sanctions policy. Right. And then it told me how to, you must have an objective, and it's like a teacher, right? It's telling me what to do. Like, you have to have all these things. And then I'm like, okay, let's go one step further. Like, give me a sample. And then it actually gave me a sample of it, but it's sort of generic. So this is why I say that, there will still need to be human intervention, because how do you then apply to, each jurisdiction, like, for example, in Tanya's example, that's so, niche and complicated, right? I mean, can you sell vodka or not? ChatGPT is not going to answer that because it depends on which jurisdiction you're in. But having said that, I've received, I've spoken to friends in practice, and apparently the juniors, the associates, a few of them, or the pupils rather, they've actually been using the ChatGPT platform to answer legal questions. So I think therein lies the issue of, do you then, and in that scenario, the friend, the partner, she had actually gone on to check to see whether it is from ChatGPT. It was. But the thing is, the answer was also correct. So there are instances where it can be useful. I suppose if at a certain level, you may be able to get answers speedily. But I've always been a person who, it's not to say I like the traditional way of finding the answers, but you would like to know the source and logic and rationale behind certain laws. Why was it implemented? Why was it passed? What was the debate about it, from the Hansards, etc., just to understand, so that 20, 30 years down the road, you understand the evolution of that law, of that section, and why does it work that way. Because if you just take an answer, you won't understand, you won't have I would say you won't have a holistic view as to why this answer has come about. Right. So use it, but use it very, wisely. I mean, carefully.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, indeed, we know that there are some issues with it right now, right? We have read that it can generate wrong information, actually, or make things up. They call it hallucination. But it's a start. I guess it's a start, and like all technology, starting with kinks, it may now not be reliable for legal specific work, but it is a technology which we here at LexisNexis, yes, Tanya, we are excited about. You asked, there was an ask, I hope LexisNexis is working on that. Yes, we're excited about it. And I guess it's an area to all councils out there, I think we need to see how we can embrace it. Look how just now we had Lexis Clause Intelligence, the demonstration. Look how far we've come up, to make our work easier as well. At the end of the day, a machine is only what you put into it, right? So we put the right things in it, and I guess that's the way forward. Let's keep an eye on that. As all of you also know, LexisNexis leads the rule of law and is big on sustainability. Investors are increasingly applying ESG as a non-financial factor in part of their analysis process to identify material risks and growth opportunities. ESG metrics, although not commonly part of a mandatory financial reporting, we find that companies are increasingly making disclosures in their annual report or in a standalone sustainability report. So Tanya, I know you spoke about ESG earlier in your workspace. Can you tell us how you are looking at that, at the ESG and how it's moving forward in your workspace?
Sure. All right. I'm very happy to hear about LexisNexis and ChatGPT. Uh, so proceeding from that, in terms of ESG, at Autodesk, ESG is like one level. It matters to us, like it matters to everyone. But because we are in this space where, there is a potential to create a lot of waste, which is construction space. And we at Autodesk have an opportunity to change that, okay, change that dynamic. So now, of course, my role is more legal and compliance, but the company as a whole, what we do is in terms of ESG, we like to, report for 10 plus years. We have been reporting our CDP, like what we are doing to change like the dynamic. We have been reporting on that. We also have certain targets internally, which can be on different matters. But for example, we will list on our impact report. So this is publicly available information. On our impact report, we have written what we are doing, to bring about change. We have also written that 50% of our women, board of directors is women, 45% executives are women. And that also forms part of ESG, like there are many dynamics. LGBTQ plus equality is also a part of that matrix. It's not just laws, it's not just regulation, it's a whole thing. And that's why we were speaking about collaboration, right? It's governance, it's climate change. So at Autodesk, within our products, right? So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Florence. Yeah, I remember Joyce likes
Yeah.
Italy. There was some talk about Italy one time.
Yeah.
So of course, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Machiavelli, Botticelli, all of them have that in common. And what is common about Florence that makes it so historic and precious is this Medici family, which was a very beneficent family, and they would promote a lot of artists, etc. What people forget though about Florence is that it has the country's longest river called Arno. Okay, and this river is prone to flooding. In Florence, there are like markers about the flood levels of this river. And there was a very massive flood in 1966. 100 people lost lives, 20,000 people were homeless, and it ruined countless artifacts, right? It's also about sustainability, it's also about keeping these artifacts, our culture. So
Yeah.
one of our products, Autodesk products, was used by a PhD student, or now an yeah, I think it's a PhD student. I don't want to misquote people's qualifications, but it was used by them. And what they did is that they were able to use that product to understand many things about, the flood levels, how this flood progresses, where are artifacts stored. There is also a precious library, where are special works stored. And he came up with an emergency plan on what happens if there is a flood. Again, how can the library preserve these things for us? So I think our products, pretty much work heavily on that. In terms of laws, governance, and all those things, currently we have an impact report. Many people come together to make this happen. We just can't do it in a siloed manner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You're absolutely right, Tanya. So, as you are well in, LexisNexis is a business of RELEX. And it is the policy of RELEX and all of its businesses to conduct their worldwide operations and activities in an ethical manner and in compliance with all applicable laws. And RELEX is a signatory to the United Nations Global Compact. We are fully committed to complying with the 10 principles of that UNGC. So I guess making sure that working towards that in your own space, as councils, that really helps as well, to make sure that we are all working towards ESG and making our companies, what we do sustainable as well, right? In a sustainable manner. Now I have some questions here. Okay, so maybe Shalini, do you want to take this? Do you keep an index or folder of relevant authorities or case law, rules, regulations that affect your work?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes. Basically, it depends on the type of authority. So in the past, I was heavily focused on corporate liability, MECC and all that. So I had a specific folder just for that. So alerts, articles, cases, everything, I put it there. And the other thing that I wanted to share, I forgot to mention earlier, is knowledge sharing, because this ties in with the working in silos. So within our team as well, because I'm fairly new, I haven't really started it here. But in the past, what I used to do is that whenever there is a new sort of, it's a first case, or it's a new law, or it's a guidelines, or it's a book that has just come out, or anything like that, I used to share it with the team. And we used to actually have a partner who's now become a judge. And this is something that he used to do as well. So what he used to do is that, like in courts, we have practice directions, right? So he had his own practice direction when it came to peculiar positions of law, or just something interesting from his case law. So he would put it as a practice direction number 1 of a certain year. And I remember this because although sometimes we don't actively read it, we don't have the time, right? So, but I remember seeing the title, I remember seeing something relevant. Because of that, years down the road, I've actually gone back to check through my mailbox to actually find that as an authority. So whilst you share, I keep a folder of all my relevant things, there are also these ways to actually share knowledge, because I'm the compliance person, but my legal team is very resourceful. They do content, they do radio, they do satellites, they do the whole corporate affairs. But if we do not work together or share knowledge, which I think we also do by sort of have sessions where we share our knowledge. And I think it happened in the past where even other business units came to show what they actually do. So if you don't share it, I think it's a bit hard to then work together and understand the business. So quite apart from I'm just deviating a bit from the question itself.
No, but it's very helpful. Thank you. Yes. So one thing, Shalini, is like, when you keep this folder, right, sometimes you've got to know how to I think you've got to know how to make sure you're naming it right. Naming convention has
naming convention, the metadata.
Yeah, because sometimes it just gets lost in there, right?
Yeah, so they've sorry, I think what Astro's done is, I think they've invested in a dashboard, or it's coming up soon, something that is going to be within the dashboard. And I know many companies would have their own sort of backed up software, AI or something like that. I'm not sure. I mean, whichever works for the organization.
A little lagging there. LexisNexis has what we call Legal Cube, where it's a database.
But I have a personal folder for me.
Yeah. Legal Cube has all the policies and, all laws and everything, the contracts, templates, everything in there. So that, and every employee of LexisNexis has the icon of a cube on their desktop itself, so they can just click on it, one click, and they're in there. So that's been really helpful. And there's another question here, Tanya, maybe you want to take it. Do you do your own research? If yes, how do you go about it? Do you delegate, and what are you looking for in results?
Okay, so I love to delegate where I can. Also, it's a learning opportunity for those whom the matter is delegated to. And I used to be at the delegation end, okay, not so long ago, where I was delegated many things. So yes, I do delegate, but let's just say at times where I don't delegate, right? Where I don't delegate, there are many ways to research. So one is, of course, if you have a database that you use that you're paying for, it's a great place to go to, because nothing has better information in one place than it. It's vetted information. You know the source. You know that the content is legitimate, that you can use it. So there are all those advantages to it. Now, let's say you don't pay for anything, right? Then I've used the freemium version of things like Lexology and other places, the freemium version of it. Also, Getting the Deal Through, which is another place which has like some freemium products in the past. So I've used a lot of these freemium versions of things and then try to make sense of the data. Because what I don't want, though, at the end of the day is like a lot of data in one folder of mine where I feel comfortable, because I used to do that. And then I started looking at how often do I go back to this? Do I take a lot of time to trawl to it, right? So one of the things I very mindfully do is have the data make sense. It shouldn't be more than one page. And if, for some godforsaken reason, something horrible happens and I want to look at the annexure, it's still there. The comfort blanket isn't thrown away, but it has to have this one pager, which I try to ask people to do as well at times where I can. But yeah, hope that answers the question.
That's great. And and Shalini, you were saying that you're investing in a software to manage knowledge.
I mean, well, it's not exactly to manage knowledge. It's primarily to manage all our contracts. It's more of a contract life cycle thing.
Right.
So it's more of
Because we have a question here from Yash and Tam on what kind of software do you all
I think they're still in the
manage your
works. I
knowledge?
mean,
Yeah.
still speaking to vendors
Software.
and financing. I think, I mean, in the past, I can say, I mean, from another organization I was with, it was with it's a Microsoft backed sort of
Yeah.
platform. So yeah.
What about you, Tanya? Also Microsoft.
Or like the office. So, all right. So put in our research, we have this option. We use something called Smartsheet. Maybe it's Microsoft backed. I'm not sure. But in Smartsheet, you can put data that you're using. We have an email retention policy that you're not going to believe. It's just 1 year.
Wow.
Which means that my email can't be my house for everything.
Wow. And you know how lawyers don't like to delete our emails. We want to dig back. Right.
Exactly.
So there's this question from Justin. What are your thoughts on employees using ChatGPT in their work? Would you encourage it, discourage it? Shalini, you mentioned that, the partners' views on the junior lawyers, our champion pupils' use of ChatGPT. Yeah.
I think it depends on the context. So for example, sorry, I've just turned off the video in case I'm lagging. So in the context of, so for example, when I was the partner and if a junior actually just comes up with a very simplistic answer without understanding, because for me, as a junior, as a pupil, I want you to know where this law or where it's coming from, the source and the root. But if, you're a senior person and you've already done all of that, then I wouldn't mind the speed of the answer, but at the same time, I would want to trust that this person has actually looked everywhere and checked the answer before actually providing the answer to me. Or even if I'm using it, I'm going to be very mindful of the fact that this may not be accurate, or what we still go back to our traditional law firms for very, very niche and specific questions. We still go back to the experts because we are not experts. But for things which you do not need the expertise, then you can actually still use it. But in that case, I think because it was a pupil, I don't think my the partner took it very, it wasn't very encouraging.
Yeah. Like I mentioned earlier, hallucination.
Yes, exactly. And it's it's infancy, right? So we don't know how it's going to be.
How do we know how accurate right, it is?
And we can't actually, and I think it's unfair for the clients, especially in the practice scenario, because they're paying you money to, for your information, for your expertise, right? So in an in-house, so I don't think that's right.
Yeah, thank you, Shalini. I have a last question here, anonymous question to all panelists. I mean, we're a very inclusive and diverse group here, but this one is specific to women. Okay, so maybe there's this idea that most women are in-house counsels. I don't know. So for all panelists, this is panelists, okay, based on your experience, do you find your work challenging? And if yes, how do you overcome these challenges as a woman? I don't know why this is woman, but I think this challenges is applicable and overcoming is applicable across gender. So who wants to take this? Can one of you take it or both of you? Let's hear from both of you. Tanya.
Okay, sure. So yeah, there are going to be challenges no matter what work you do. It can be like any work, and it's finally depends upon you as a person, how you process stress, how you process challenge. So a lot of us who are lawyers have elected into this profession because maybe it suits our personality types. Maybe we are okay in high stress situations. Maybe those are the situations where we, are at our best. They don't stress us out. They bring us back to life. Maybe that's the reason. So in terms of managing stress, okay, like the Russia-Ukraine thing I told you about, and there are some other instances, like, investigations happen, dawn raids happen, all these things happen. So in those situations, I just make sure I follow my routine, at least one thing of my routine. So it could be having a coffee by myself in the morning for half an hour and not looking at my phone at all, not doing anything for that half an hour. And that just, like vitalizes me for the whole day ahead. It could be a shower for somebody, like just a hot shower in the middle of the day or whatever, or running. It's different things for different people. I love challenges though. Without challenges, work would be very boring for me.
Yeah. What about you, Shalini?
I would echo, of course, Tanya's views on this. And I think maybe if I'm just trying to understand the question, perhaps the challenge as a woman, I can tell you from my view, 2 points. When I was a practitioner, I was a dispute person, so I was a litigator. So it's a highly, I think, a male-dominated practice. But I have seen so many women stepping up, and I've seen so many seniors who have paved that way for us. And I've seen counsels, women especially at the highest court, the Court of Appeal, Federal Court, answering very confidently. I've seen, my own partners in the past where, she was facing so many defendants, and all of them was senior, male practitioner, and she's the sole woman, and she's, she just took them down just like that. And so I feel if you are confident, when, especially if, for a disputes person, if you know your facts, if you know your documents, if you know your law, there's nothing to really fear. And then from an in-house perspective, I think the difference is your stakeholders. In Malaysia, I think now we have a 30%. I think Autodesk has done very well, right? 50% and 45% of the workforce is females. But we in Malaysia, we've just started this thing where we want to, the government has indicated 30% of our board should be women. And when we go to, so, and then, our CEOs and COOs, and most of them in certain industries are males. And I think the challenge, maybe the challenging part is if you walk into a room, right, and board meeting, and they're all male, but I use it as an opportunity. For me, the challenge is actually converted into an opportunity. This is your opportunity to showcase that, despite being a woman, or, you're no less, right, because of the confidence that you have, because of the information that you have, the knowledge that you have, and how you can actually transmute it to them. And I think, looking at challenges as opportunity is one thing. So in Malaysia, I mean, if you're females and, there is a direction, the government is looking into placing women into boards. So there's actually an opportunity rather. So take the challenges as an opportunity, do your courses, post on LinkedIn, get a mentor, do those work, and then put yourself out there. So I think, I mean, and I think most importantly, if you enjoy your work, I don't think, it will be a problem. The challenges are just, something that you can take on a daily basis.
Great. Thank you, Shalini. Actually, here at LexisNexis, we actually also have male mentors for lead women to also to champion women as well. So I guess you're right, making those challenges into opportunities. Very good. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank our panel, Shalini and Tanya, for your sharing and insight. And I'd also like to thank all of you here, and not forgetting the team, Roshni, William, all the whole team that put all this together. Over to you, Roshni. We're up to our last minute.
Thank you so much, Joyce. And I wanted to say that was a wonderfully inspiring note to end on, with International Women's Day right around the corner. So thank you so much. Again, I echo Joyce completely. Thank you so much to our panelists, Shalini and Tanya. And of course, thank you to our moderator, Joyce, for participating in today's panel discussion. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. And thank you to all of you for spending your midweek lunch break with us. A recording of this panel will be available on our corporate websites soon. And if you have any questions on our brand new legal drafting solution, Lexis Clause Intelligence, or would like to learn more, please feel free to get in touch. Until next time, thank you and take care.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.